Vince, what's going on with your thing? I feel like I'm at a club. Oh my God, thank you. Oh, no.
Hello, Member Divine. Can we go ahead and test your audio and video? See you.
You're on mute. Hey.
One more time. No, we can't hear you.
I'm unmuted.
There we go. Okay, we got it. Thank you.
Co-Vice Chair Moore. Ooh, okay. Hang on just a moment.
So I do not have the agenda, so I'm not able to facilitate.
Why don't we have Chair Barnett start us off, and I will get you that agenda.
Hey, welcome everyone. So I want to make a quick announcement that we do have Spanish interpretation, and I do need to do a hold real quick so that the City of Santa Rosa host can set that up in the background. So I want to let everyone know that.
You can go ahead and continue, Chair Barnett. Interpretation services are live. We will have a brief pause at about 7 p.m. as we switch it over to our alternate interpreter.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'd like to call us.
Wait a second. Can we allow the interpreters to let the audience know about the interpretation button real quick? And if they need interpretation, that they can go over to the interpretation line?
Let me see. Can we have interpreter Ziomora do an interpretation on our end so they can go to the interpretation globe on the bottom of the screen? Interpreter Ziamora?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Could you just do a quick announcement to advise any listeners who would like to join on the Spanish channel to go down to the bottom bar and select the globe for interpretation, and they'll be directed to the Spanish channel?
Sí, estamos teniendo intérpretes que hablan español y si usted necesita un intérprete puede ir al canal para que escuche las conversaciones en español donde está una bolita como parece un globo.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. With that, I would like to call us to order and also have our roll call.
All right. Let's see here. Member Chaparro?
Made it.
Okay,
Made it.
thank you.
It took forever. Sorry.
Member Devine?
Here.
Sorry, and I skipped one. Member Cruz?
Present.
Okay. Member Foster, are you here? I do not see you. Member Harper?
Here.
Member Okanya? Member Carabin?
Here.
Member Roberts? Are you here? I don't see you either. Okay. All right. And Co-Vice Chair Graves?
Here.
Co-Vice Chair Moore?
Here.
And Chair Barnett.
Present.
All right. So I have all members present except for members Foster, members Roberts, and I'd also like to announce that sadly member McGarry had to leave the cab. She resigned this week and she will not be joining us for this October meeting.
Thank you for the update, Danielle. At this time, I'd like to put a request out for public comment.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. I'd like to go to item number 3, approval of minutes from our September 23rd, 2020 regular meeting.
We can make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? Or do you want to do roll call, Danielle? Or do you want to?
I will do the roll call vote. Member Chaparro?
Yeah.
Member Cruz? Okay. Member Cruz?
Yes.
Member Devine? Member Harper?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Member Okanya?
I abstain. I was absent.
Okay, thank you. Member Carabin?
Abstain. I was also absent.
Okay. And then Co-Vice Chair Graves?
Approve.
Okay, Co-Vice Chair Moore?
Approve.
And Chair Barnett.
Approve.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like at this time for public comment.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. This time I'd like to go to item number 4, which is cab announcements. Are there any announcements from the members of the board? And just raise a hand if you have something that you would like to announce. Member Cecile.
Thank you. I just wanted to get it into the record about voting starts Saturday. And so there is in-person voting or drop-off, in-person drop-off starting Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then of course election day. I would just recommend everybody to go to, sonomacounty.ca.gov to see all of the locations, because of course there are, many fewer locations than we normally have. But we have, in this state, we've made it pretty easy to even, I think we can even still mail it in, because I think there are something like 17 days after election day that they will count the mail-in votes, or that they can come in, as long as they are postmarked the day of election day, November 3rd. I just wanted to get on the record so that if anybody sees this, or even if some of our members don't know.
Say 17 days?
17, I'm pretty sure it's 17 days after November 3rd.
Thank you, Cecile. Any other announcements from members of the board?
It's not really an announcement, but I have to leave a little bit after 7:20.
Thank you for letting us know that. Danielle, does that affect quorum? No. Okay, excellent. Any other announcements?
So,
yes, Leslie.
Hi, just clarify, love that announcement about the voting, but just because there was a little hesitancy and a question about it. The mail-in ballots do need to be postmarked by November 3rd, and then the registrar of voters has 17 days to receive those mail-in ballots from the post office to her office, and has until December 3rd to actually count the votes. So just so that clarification happens, and mail-in ballots do not require any extra postage. There is a prepaid first-class postage on those blue envelopes. Just be sure to sign underneath the flap and then return to the post office having it postmarked no later than November 3rd. And all those locations can be found at the Sonoma County Registrar of Office website. And there's 30 locations for in-person voting throughout Sonoma County, 4 of which are in Santa Rosa. And there are 20 locations for drop boxes, secure drop boxes, and the drop boxes close at 8 o'clock on election day, November 3rd. And that is the closing time on the last in-person voting day as well. So Saturday, Sunday, and Monday are open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on election day, it's open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So there you go. And thank you.
Thank you, Member Graves. Okay, at this time, hold on one second. Any other CAB member announcements? Seeing none, I'd like to go to public comment.
There are no hands raised at this time for public comment.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to go to item number 5, which is our staff updates.
Okay, now I'm ready. I think, hold on. Now I'm ready. All right, so first of all, I want to let everyone know that Magali is currently on the line. She's listening in right now, but she is not joining us via camera as she has her daughter, and there's a lot going on in the background. However, she is available for questions if they do come up on any of the items that I can't answer. So jumping in, Community Empowerment Plan update. Listening sessions, we're wrapping those up by November 15th. We've had a couple of delays in those. with the fire, and also with the extreme heat temperatures, some of the groups do want to meet in person, and we've been open to doing that by holding them outside. But when you have really smoky air and you also have really hot temperatures, it makes it really difficult. So hopefully by November 15th, we'll be all wrapped up with those. This means that the final report that's going to council has been pushed back until the first meeting in February 2021. And the reason why it will take so long to get from the last listening session to council, I just wanted to talk real quick about the process of the final report. So once we draft the final report, or actually, sorry, stepping back, we are in process currently of evaluating the information that's being collected from listening sessions and also from public comment at various public meetings that have happened since the end of May. We are going to take that information, draft it into the report, and then have that draft report translated. We will take the draft plus the translated draft back out to the community to make sure we have everything in there, we got everything right, we didn't misrepresent anything that was said. We will take the feedback that we get, incorporate it into the final report, finalize the translation, and then present it to council. Now we're coming up on holiday season as well, so that will slow us down a little bit, hence why it's being pushed back to the first meeting in February. Moving on, some of the outcomes from these listening sessions we've started to implement with our community groups and with various departments throughout the city, first being ethnic studies with a cop. That began last Tuesday, October 20th. It's a partnership between community engagement, Santa Rosa Police Department, and our Santa Rosa Recreation and Parks team. The goal of the program is to enhance students' education while building relationships with both city staff and officers from the police department. Officers also get to learn about other cultures and their experiences while participating in this, as well as other staff. For more information about this, including number of kids participating, the types of sessions that we're holding, we are highlighting the program in tomorrow's City Connections newsletter. So please watch out for that. If you are not subscribed to that, please go to srcity.org, and a pop-up window will come up asking you to subscribe to the newsletter. We also have a social post going out here this week about it. And it's on the Community Empowerment Project's webpage. So if you go to the Community Empowerment Plan website, it's one of the subpages there. In addition to that, we are implementing our Multicultural Roots Project, which I'll talk about later, so I won't get into that. So that is it for right now with our Community Empowerment Plan update. The other update that I have will be real brief. It's the Open Government Ordinance update. So that ordinance is going to the Open Government Task Force Implementation Subcommittee tomorrow, October 29th at 5:30. The subcommittee will meet virtually and review and finalize the ordinance in order to send it to council. For those of you who were not part of that process, we did meet in 2018 and 2019 as a subcommittee to get that draft ordinance to a really great place. And then we lost our city clerk, we lost our community engagement director. So it kind of fell to the back burner, but we're bringing it back forward. It will go to council for a first reading on December 1st. So this is a long time in the making. The first draft of the ordinance came about in 2016. So we're finally getting there. Please participate if you'd like tomorrow evening in the subcommittee, and then on December 1st, tune into the city council meeting. And that is it for my staff updates.
Thank you, Danielle.
If somebody, how would they access that meeting?
Hold on just a second. Where am I? There we go. Okay, sorry, I had to get the Zoom screen back up. So the agenda is posted on the city's legislative calendar website. It's also on the community empowerment page website as well. So the link to the agenda is there, and the link to the Zoom is also there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. At this time, is there any other questions from the board? I'd like to go to public comment.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to go to one of our first scheduled items. This is item 6.1. Get ready, folks. Shared mobility devices, informational presentation.
Thank you.
Is Nancy's here?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I just go ahead and get started. So I want to introduce myself, Nancy Adams. I work in the Transportation and Public Works Department for the city, and I'm happy and excited to share this item with you this evening. It has a little bit of history behind it. I did want to make sure I caught up with the board so that they are aware of this initiative that we're starting on here and moving it forward through your board and ultimately to the city council next month. So I will ask the host to advance the next slide, please. So just a little bit of background on this item. We've noticed in the last few years that shared mobility devices, and they could be scooters, typically they're scooters, have really begun to kind of emerge throughout the country and not in avoiding California. There's been several cities in California that have really struggled to try to meet the mobility needs of the workers and the residents and tourists. So we're in a challenging time, but it's a good thing because we're trying to look at mobility options, as we move around with changing conditions, as we all witnessed this first part of this year. So one of the things that these e-scooters do present, they do present some challenges to riders and pedestrians in the use of our public right-of-way. So that's, I think, where cities throughout the country and in California are struggling with how to regulate these devices within the public right-of-way. So just as another bit of information, and actually I had a Zoom meeting this afternoon about a pilot bike share project that we expect to launch in 2021. And those devices would be, those are electric bikes or e-bikes. So it's a little bit different device, but nonetheless, it's still something that we need to think about. And so we will expect to see some of these electric bikes as part of this bike share project, probably say around summer of 2021. So next slide, please. So I'll give a little bit of policy context to this initiative. The council just adopted the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan in 2018, and one of the goals of the plan was to increase our bike and pedestrian mode share by 5% in 2025. So again, we try to look at different initiatives and different options to reach that mode share goal. And then the other policy context for this is the Climate Action Plan, which was approved by the council in 2012. And one of the measurements or metrics identified in that plan was to improve transport options that increase the availability of alternatives to SOVs, and that's single occupant vehicles, and then thereby reducing VMTs. And VMT is an acronym for vehicle miles traveled. So next slide, please. So as I kind of started talking a little bit about some of the issues that we're struggling with are just, dropping off these vehicles in the public right of way, creating trip hazards and just a kind of a clutter of these devices that are in the sidewalk or, you know, in the parking lanes, so we're cognizant of that, and that's one of the major challenges. And then just how they operate, you know, and that ranges from how these vehicles or devices, interact with pedestrians and cyclists and other vehicles. And then the last two have to do with just the enforcement of it and what that means for, you know, additional enforcement and how we can, you know, look at ways of regulating our enforcement activities. And then the last one has to do with just the liability and the indemnification that the deployment of these vehicles and how that impacts a municipality. Next slide, please. So there's a couple of state legislation that has been discussed, and the first one is AB 1112, and that has been amended in July, but it's kind of in a slow moving pattern, and that essentially would enable somebody to relocate a device if they see it, you know, blocking the public right of way. So that's kind of not really made a lot of traction. And the other piece of legislation is AB 1286, and that was passed by the Senate and the House and enrolled in September of 2020. And essentially that legislation would require vendors to get permits from, you know, a local city or county, wherever they're planning on deploying the devices. So next slide, please. So let's see, the California Vehicle Code has some sections that relate to e-bikes. They classify them into three different types, and it really has to do with pedal assist and kind of activating motors with pedal assist that triggers you know, different speed regulations. So that's in there. And the California Vehicle Code also has some language about scooters as well, and it's primarily related to the speed that the scooters can operate at. And then we have Santa Rosa has some existing code within our ordinance that has to do with prohibiting the use of scooters in the downtown and the Railroad Square area in public areas. And if assuming council gives us some positive feedback and wants us to look at this even, you know, to a greater degree, we would have to amend that code to you know, to look at what we would permit in the downtown and where we would permit them, and then also look at, you know, some companion permit regulations. So that's a good segue into the next slide, please. So there's a few things that we've looked at in terms of how we would regulate the operation of these devices. And I've looked at several cities in California, and by and large, most of the cities use the ordinance framework to put some structure behind these devices within a community. And as you can see on the screen, we're looking at, again, the public safety, promoting safety within the right-of-way, responsible operations by the vendor and the users, and looking at keeping our, you know, city mobility goals, you know, keep advancing those. And then just, you know, they tend to have a potential to just, you know, to promote some economic development within communities. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I've looked at probably about 10 or so cities within California, a few in the Bay Area. I looked at Fremont, Emeryville, and let's see, Palo Alto. So in San Francisco, that can't forget the largest one, in Oakland. So there were some common elements to the ordinances that these cities throughout California can contain. So as you can see, I think the most important thing was that each one of these cities established a regulatory framework and a permit system and a fee schedule to help with the regulation of them. They obviously required the operators to hold the insurance and indemnify the city. It just talks about how enforcement would occur. And then it establishes some administrative regulations that govern the operations within a community. And then also looks at describing the compliance with the federal, state, and local laws related to these types of devices. And then quite a few of them went so far as to look at their ordinance to look at including something about designating parking areas. And that's kind of been, you know, one of the main concerns about where these devices are parked, right? So I noticed that was some of the ordinances had really got drilled down a little bit more into the parking areas. So next slide, please. So just in terms of what a permit would look like, and again, this is looking at some of the permit processes that these cities have developed. They usually have a scope of what the project is. They identify safe operations. And again, you see parking and the redistribution of the devices. They want the vendor to look at having an operation and maintenance plan. Oops. Hello? And so can you still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And then, of course, then there are other things involved, just the community, right? How do we, the customer service end, how do we, how do we know who to contact with if there's a problem, and then community engagement and education. Those are pretty key areas that we would want to make sure that we're addressing. And then just the equity requirements and the affordability, making sure that this system or these devices would be available for all income levels. And really, some of them have gone as far as to looking at the accessibility for disabled population and to see if their devices could have I'm not saying this right, but they would have different things on their devices to make them easier for individuals with disabilities to use them. So next slide, please. And I think, oops, next slide, yeah. So this is, I think, the last of the two slides on the regulation. And then the few other things what we haven't talked about is data sharing and reporting, because many of these devices and systems they're app-based and GIS-based. So there is a lot of information that the vendor is collecting. So we would want to make sure that that he or she or the vendor is doing a good job of making the data as private, and then making sure that the city would be able to have that information as well. And we've talked about compliance with local laws and state and federal laws, and then enforcement, and then again accessibility to persons with disability I spoke about earlier, and then deposits and fees and insurance and indemnification. So next slide, please. So actually, my next step is to go to the City Council on the 10th of November, and we're going to be having a study session to council's role on that is to get some, get input from them, what, if there's questions that they have, are we missing anything, and just really kind of get some guidance from them on how we want to proceed. And then with the goal that assuming council is favorable with this, we would come back to them with to introduce an ordinance, maybe later this year or early next year, and then look at trying to to develop a permit system following that. So that concludes my presentation, and I would just say that I'm happy to again share this with you, and there may be some questions. I'm happy to answer questions if I can, and if there's any suggestions or things that you would like to let me be aware of, as I move forward to the council study session, I would greatly appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Nancy. At this time, I know my board here will probably have some intriguing questions, because this is one of those opportunities where we have the advantage of being a smaller city, so that this hasn't come full forward into Santa Rosa, but it will. And it's going to directly impact neighborhoods. And so this is going to be, it's great. We have the opportunity to talk with you, and that we have time to develop the policies. As I don't know, other members have probably seen, if you've gone to Sacramento, if you've gone to San Diego, Los Angeles, these devices are rampant, and what is being brought up in the policy now has been a reflection of the things that these cities have had to address, because they literally had some situations where they popped up overnight, and they had to remediate that and work with neighborhoods. So questions from the board? Cecile.
So thank you, Nancy, for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I do have just a couple questions around figuring out, I guess what you're saying is that Santa Rosa is gonna, we need to figure out what our ordinance will be like. Is that what ultimately, we want to understand what we want in an ordinance for those electric vehicles, and is that right?
Yeah, I think the ordinance is going to be, it'll be a regulatory, set the regulatory framework. It's probably going to define, what these devices are, like a scooter versus an e-bike. And so, it needs to and establish a permits system, which is what many of the cities have done. That way, they can, if vendors do come in, they have to, file a permit with the city, and with that permit, there are restrictions that are associated with that, and that's those two slides that I went through, that some of the things that regulate. Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, is it just these big vendor operators that tend to go into the cities, or are they a bunch of different, companies that try to get in? And because, we are a small city, as Chair Barnett pointed out, and I've been to San Diego, and you see them scooters just lying in the or parked on a sidewalk, in the middle of the sidewalk. So, can we say to the vendor operators, well, here's what we need to have happen. We need you to pick them up timely, in a timely way, or have quick pickup. I don't, things like that. Are we allowed to try to get them to comply differently than they do in other cities?
So that would be the permit would regulate that, and there's different ways to do that. There's some of the cities use it's called a geofencing, and that really means that it doesn't, the bike won't go beyond a certain, they set these things up, and I'm not the technical person here, but essentially it contains the bikes to certain areas, and they can't physically get them outside of those areas. So that's one way you can do them. And then, there are other ways to, there's penalties you can associated with some of the cities. They'll wager, fees or penalties against the vendor if they're not complying with, keeping the bikes or scooters with as described in the permit. So it all would tie back to the permit. Yeah.
And it, would be great to actually see a representative of a vendor or operator, in the study session. I don't know if they ever do that, but, to be able to ask them, make them own up to sort of the bad impact that it has on cities. and I'll move on. So, thank you.
Hi,
Thank you
real
for your
quick,
question. Thank
everybody, I just wanted to say that the interpreters have asked us to slow down just a little bit. So if the presenters and cab members could just take a moment, slow down, and then we'll allow them to catch up. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies to the interpreters. I'm sorry.
Thank you for the reminder, Danielle.
Any other questions from the board members? Vince.
Actually, I don't have a question, but I want to thank you for this presentation because the last time I saw one of these bikes, I really didn't think of all this stuff. So it's now changed my whole world. So thank you.
I have Vice Chair Moore and then Member Ocaña.
Thank you for the presentation. Who initiated the study session?
So it was, so staff is actually bringing this forward.
So what was the impetus, though? I mean, no one from the public or no vendor helped spur it on? So
what we'd like to do is be proactive. One of your colleagues mentioned, some cities experience these devices just coming in overnight and the city isn't prepared. So, our department has taken a proactive approach with this, and it is consistent with our policies, our bike and ped master plan and the climate action plan in terms of a policy concept. So we want to be proactive, and we want to, I've had an interest in people trying to, market their products. And I know some of my colleagues in my department have, so we know there's interest out there with vendors. So again, we're just trying to be proactive, and I hope that answers your question.
Another question I have, you said that you've looked at approximately 10 different cities around California, and Member Curbin brought up the issues that are occurring in San Diego. I'm wondering if you've done an analysis on the known challenges and problems that these devices have caused in terms of looking at other city ordinances that have been developed and the problems that have occurred after those ordinances were adopted to help inform writing a better policy now? And if you've done an analysis, will that be presented at the study session?
So that's a good question. I have done an analysis of their ordinances, and it's a challenge because I think it's a great question. I am trying to get in contact with some of the staff at these cities to find out really how things are going. But with the shelter in place, I haven't been as successful as I wanted to. But I would like to your point, I'd like to actually talk to or email some of the staff contacts in these various cities to see, now that they have the ordinance, how are they experiencing these devices within their jurisdiction? So I think it's a great question, and I'm hoping to at least chat with maybe one or two in the Bay Area before the council study session in November. So thank you. It's a good question.
It just more of a comment than a question. It seems like November 12th is coming very, very quickly, and I'm wondering if there'd be benefit in postponing the study session so that you could really have a more comprehensive package to present to the city. And the reason why I'm saying this is I've just seen a lot of policies move forward that then have to be revisited by council, or, you know, the problems have to really become big before the ordinance can get changed, because it's such a process to update ordinances. And so I'm just would urge pacing yourself to be able to you know, even answer just these questions and maybe others that arise as you're studying this, to make sure that it's, you know, it kind of is taking into account some of the challenges that these devices can present. Thank you.
Member Ocaña?
Thanks. Nancy, thank you so much for bringing this to us. I am an enormous proponent of these shared transportation devices. I agree that in many of the communities in California that there are enormous obstacles that the cities are still facing, especially if ordinances were rushed through and now have to be amended. But I am super proud that Santa Rosa is actually taking a proactive stance on this, because I believe that our community needs and will very much appreciate the use of these devices. I'm a big fan of the bicycles, and the reason for that is that they have designated drop-off zones. So if you borrow a bike or you rent it, you have to return it to a specific place. The issue with the scooters is that you can leave them anywhere. So unless there's some kind of new technology that requires them to be returned to a specific drop-off section, a drop-off spot, which you mentioned in your slide, that is, I think, a big driver of what causes so many of the other issues. I have 3 quick questions. The first one is, you had mentioned enforcement of the devices. And so my question is, in the ordinance or in any proposed ordinance, have you talked about what potential, or have you gotten from other cities what fines look like? Or what's the amount a fine might look like? Is there fines for riding them on the sidewalk? Do people have to be on the streets? And the reason I ask that is because when tourists travel, they don't bring a helmet with them. And so riding on the street can be quite dangerous, even in Sonoma County, where we have designated bike lanes, but they're not everywhere where people would use them. So maybe I could just ask that, and then I'll ask my other 2 questions.
So I'm trying to recall. One fine I'm remembering from one of the cities, I think it was $150 for you know, having it like a penalty for having it not on the right spot, and that for some reason that sticks in my mind. So that I don't recall what the other ones were, but that one stuck in my mind. So that at least gives you some context of one city as an example. Yeah.
And that was a fine to the vendor or to the user?
No, that's to the vendor. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my question is more, if people are using these devices on streets, and I think as an example, 4th Street, and they're using e-scooters, is our ordinance going to include the opportunity for Santa Rosa PD to give users fines? So it's just a...
say yes. Yeah. Oh, yes, for sure. And it's not only the vendor, but the users are responsible to abide by and be compliant with the California Vehicle Code. So it's not unlike a vehicle, a driver, right? So there are fines and penalties that would be associated with users as well.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have 2 other questions, if you don't mind. The second one is concerning liability. You had mentioned that we would seek indemnity agreements from vendors. The first thing that pops into my mind is the city of San Diego having to deal with a woman who sued the city because she tripped over an e-scooter. And I'm sure that's what's driving these indemnity agreements. Do you have is there any precedence that's been set in the 10 cities that you've looked at where vendors are willing to come in with full indemnity agreements to the city for the misplacement of their devices?
Yeah, and I'm obviously I'm not an attorney, but you know, I've got one of the my colleagues in the city attorney's office. She'll be working with me on this, and I haven't done a real deep dive on, you know, what kind of indemnification these cities have, but I think that will certainly be something that we, you know, moving forward, look at that, and you know, and I'll rely on my my legal support to help me on that one. Yeah.
Oh, I understand. And I guess I only bring that up because that would be, it seems like that would be something in the pocket of the city to be able, once you have, because we will have a number of community members complaining about the, you know, the drop off of these devices, that would be something that the city could use to essentially, you know, correct bad behavior from a vendor. So, and then my last question is, so I'm really excited that an enormous part of this includes equity, because I think that the affordability and the spacing of where are what's the right word? Wherever these are stationed is enormously important. We have a very diverse city, and obviously we have a lot of economic stratification within the communities. So, for example, of course, the east side of Santa Rosa is far wealthier than the west side of Santa Rosa in many sections. And so, with regards to the geofencing, I'm wondering, I can see how downtown would be a fantastic place to start this project, but do you think that that this, in your study session that you may be presenting to the city council, different sections that would include different geofencing, so that perhaps there were stations in Roseland, there were stations in Bennett Valley, there were stations in Coffee Park, and whatnot. And that's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you know, I think that those are all great ideas, and as we move forward, you know, and assuming what council's decision is, you know, those are good things that we need to look at as we push this forward, and try to make sure that you know, their service area is covering all different populations and community neighborhoods within the city. So yeah.
Next up, I have co-chair Graves.
It's a long name when you get it that way. So I'm going to actually take a question that's on chat right now and bring that forward. Is this your one and only study session scheduled?
So with the council, we're starting with the study session, but I would anticipate, again, pending council's discussion, that we would come back with a report item with a reading, you know, introducing an ordinance, and then so that would be a report item, and then you have to go back with a second reading on that. So you know, I would say minimum three council meetings to address this.
Yeah, it seems pretty deep. I have a couple questions of my own to piggyback off the equity issues. Is there any plan to ask vendors for like group rates or rates that could be applied to, let's say, group homes or different you know, populations that may be marginalized as far as being able to afford the use of the bikes? And I bring this up because of your mention of it being in line with the climate action plan, and also being proactive, and that maybe this would be a great way to be proactive in those communities where something like this would be a great tool and a great service, but might be out of reach as far as affordability.
Yeah, and that's a great question as well. What I've been reading and actually this bike share that's going to be launched here in 2021 is vendors can offer discounts based on your income level. So there's a stratification there that I think is good, and there may be other options about passes and whatnot. So I think what we need to do is make sure that we explore options for all the neighborhoods and the various income levels throughout the community, and to make sure that everyone has an equitable opportunity to use the devices. And I think that's the ultimate goal. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for that. And then also with that, one, I want to point out that not all bike vendors are created equal. So I know from my experiences of being up in the Northwest, like in Seattle areas, that those electric bikes up there by like Lime and Jump are they're not designated places for return. So they are hanging out in lots of different places around the city. Granted, Seattle is very different than us. It's more like a San Francisco or something like that. But and I think that having it to where it's not a designated place to return makes it a lot more user friendly, because I'm not always going exactly to the designated place that I would need to return a bike, that I'm going somewhere and needing to just leave it there. So that's a real vendor issue. But my question involves this time of COVID, and I haven't really seen anything, although I've not really been out as much as I used to be. And so when this whole shared vehicle or device started up and it just went rampant, there was no COVID, and now I don't know, like, what do these vendors do? And I think that that's always a concern at this point moving forward. And when you say 2021, I can imagine that we're still going to be in this arena of needing things to be sterilized or sanitized, and yet we're sharing. So how does that work, and how does that get built into some type of a permit? And if I would assume that's already being thought of, but I just want to bring it up for you as well as the public that might be listening in. So thanks.
Yeah. So I'll just mention that the bike share, it's Gotcha. They're the ones that are going to be doing the bike share in the communities, and this came up at a staff level. How are you going to what protocols are you going to use for your e-bikes, right? And so they understand the issue, and they've already started. These vendors have already started their protocols for these shared devices by cleaning them and all the safety protocols that we use throughout our daily activities. So I would imagine that those are all things that will continue forward as we move ahead. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. If I may just take about 30 seconds to a minute to go ahead and switch to our alternate for the interpretation services. much, everyone. Interpreters have been swapped over.
Thank you for that. Leslie, did you have any other questions for Nancy?
No, thank you, but thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, at this time, I'd like to go to public comment.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
I have one quick, so I just want to, the study session with council, November 20th?
No, actually it's November 10th.
November 10th.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, thank you. I just wanted to verify, I want to make sure my notes are correct here. So for November 10th is the first study session. And I had a question, this might be out, well, it depends. The question I have is in relationship to the downtown area station plan and whether or not any of this got roped into that. And the reason for that is from a logistics standpoint, that is the area that's going to see the first impacts. And so just to give the board a little bit of a heads up, so Trek Santa Rosa already has a bike share on the corner of 7th and Mendocino Avenue. I'm assuming that ties into their proximity to the trails. The SMART train is going forward with an RFP for 300 bike shares, but that is going to be split between 2 counties. But is already kind of anticipated that the downtown SMART train station will be one of the high traffic areas for that RFP. So we have 2 instances existing right now. I haven't heard anything about scooters yet. But I think that it's fantastic that Nancy and Rob and the entire team is kind of proactive on this one, that we have this distinct advantage of being a smaller city. So we have a little bit of leg time to get it right. One question though about future study sessions though is there going to be any outreach directly to the neighborhoods that are in specifically the downtown area? So I'm thinking of the West End, I'm thinking of Cherry Street neighborhood, I'm thinking of Ridgeway Historic. And the reason for that is this is a type of thing of we can get it right on the ordinance side, but I can already tell you from what I've heard from friends and family in other major cities, those downtown neighborhoods are gonna see the impact. And what I mean by the impact is that, they're gonna, if you live in, prime example, if you live in and around the SMART train, your neighborhood is that you could very well wake up on a Sunday morning and there's 5 e-bikes on your front lawn and you have no idea how they showed up. And so those neighborhoods are going to want to have that partnership of not a big deal. I make one phone call and it gets handled, or, I go on the Mind Santa Rosa app and it's dealt with within an hour. That's something I think on the preventative side, on the front end, that we can address with those neighborhoods, because I think they're going to be the ones that see the first neighborhood impacts of either their parks, front lawns, any, of that corridor shared space. They're going to see it and experience it. And so I want them to have a positive relationship and feel like they're a partner with the city on it, because oftentimes the vendors are app-based. And so getting a hold of customer service is a little challenging. So that was my question to you, Nancy, of when we're doing these hearings, are we going to be doing any neighborhood outreach as we go into the one coming up on the 10th is for council, but the ones that happen after that, is there going to be an effort to kind of let those folks know that this is coming?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's interesting that you mentioned this, because the bike share, which is the 300 bikes that are coming in Sonoma and Marin County, they're actually going to start launching their outreach to the community, and with that, like I said, with the goal of trying to get their devices deployed in summer of 2021. So it's a point well taken. We need to figure out how we reach those peripheral neighborhoods around the downtown. And so I think you raise a good question, and we've got to think about how we incorporate that in the process for sure. So I know they have different meetings and whatnot, and so maybe there's an opportunity to do some, you know, neighborhood networking, so to speak, and reach out to them. So that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about bike share is that, you know, I think a lot of major cities saw it as, you know, the initial users are tourists, right? Because it's a great way to hop around. Sacramento is a prime example, you know, but one of the things about it is that once it comes into the culture of a city, it changes the culture of a city. So one of the things about bike share is once you get to what I refer to as critical mass, you know, more people on bikes means more people on bikes, more people out, you know, using different modes of transportation. It changes the culture of a city. And so it does have a remarkable transformation of you're in a downtown area and all of a sudden it's like, there's more bikes and more scooters than cars. And you're seeing, you know, and there's more people out in a downtown area at different points, you know, and that it's a culture shift. And I'm looking forward to it. And what I'm also looking forward to is, I think in a lot of these cities, and I'll be curious to find out what you get back from your colleagues in these other cities, if they see a trend where, yes, tourists are the initial users and the initial drivers, but do we also then see, as this program goes in, more and more residents taking advantage of it because it's more convenient to jump on a dock station and get across town or get to one section of the downtown, meet a friend, and head back. And so that'll be the other interesting metric of, will we see residents taking advantage of this, and will we see the data timeline, what kind of happens over time, and do we see a culture shift with it? So I'm excited about this, but I'm also on the neighborhood side going, oh boy, this is going to be some fun policy. Any other questions from the board before I go over to public comment? All right, Nancy, thank you so much, and thank you, Rob, for bringing this to us. And that I'm sorry. Member Cruz, you have a question.
I just wanted to ask that Luther Burbank Gardens Historic Neighborhood District be included in the outreach efforts, because we are just across the street from City Hall, so we kind of get skipped over sometimes.
Yeah, I got that. Thank you. I saw it in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Cruz. You're right. I think of the downtown area station plan. You're absolutely right. Burbank Gardens. Yeah, I can tell you right now, Mom, there's going to be, you will see bikes on that lawn, I guarantee. All right, any other questions from the board? Member Devine.
Yeah, hi, I was just wondering if, thank you, first of all, thank you for that information. And I was wondering if an underground rail system such as they have in San Francisco, has that ever been considered? And because I feel like we have so much traffic here already, our streets are so crowded. I was just wondering if alternative routes have been considered.
Oh, well, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any underground rail for the Santa Rosa area. So oddly enough, I've been with the city long enough to know that one of the options for reuniting the courthouse square was to tunnel underneath the square, and that's about as underground as for the downtown that I'm aware of. So I know that probably doesn't answer your question, but yeah.
No, it does. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? I'd like to go to public comment.
There are currently no hands raised for public comment.
All right. Nancy, Rob, thank you so much for bringing this to our board. As you can tell, I'm excited about it. It's a fantastic presentation. I look forward to the study session. I look forward to how this ties into the downtown area station plan. And I look forward to seeing what kind of a remarkable culture we're going to see and the shift we're going to see in downtown Santa Rosa in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to hand the agenda over to Vice Chair Graves.
Great, thank you. And I am intentionally slowing down a bit for our interpreters. That was quite a bit of information. I wish I could see our interpreters so I could get a thumbs up, but I'm just slowing down a bit, just so everybody knows. At this time, we'll move on to agenda item 6.2, the Multicultural Roots Project and Outreach Assistance. And I believe Danielle is going to bring that forward.
I am. Thank you, Co-Vice Chair Graves, for slowing down a bit. I will do my best as well. I have a tendency to talk very fast, so please remind me if I need to. Okay, so I don't have any slides for this presentation. I'm just going to give you some background, and I really hope that everyone took the time to read the summaries that were included in the agenda. I've decided actually to go ahead and give you a couple little excerpts from each, but before I do that, I'm going to give you some information about the project. So the Multicultural Roots Project, Stories from Santa Rosa's Black, Indigenous, People of Color, is directly from one of the outcomes from the Community Empowerment Plan. The goal of, actually there's two goals of the project. The first goal is to create visibility for our Black, Indigenous, People of Color, or BIPOC communities in Sonoma County, with a particular focus on Santa Rosa. The second one is to recognize, through historical stories from BIPOC, contributions and impacts that have shaped Santa Rosa and Sonoma County. As you may recall, Magali and I have talked to you about this before. And a couple months ago, I sent an email out to the board asking for any feedback that you had on the proposal of the project. Heard from a couple folks, so I appreciate that feedback. We did reach out to several community groups as well as the CAB to run the project by them, but also to see if they would serve in an advisory capacity. Unfortunately, none of the groups that we approached were able to do that at this time. We decided to move forward with just our project advisory group, which is a group of community members that have engaged with us through our Community Empowerment Plan listening sessions. We currently have, I want to say, 11 members that are active in this group, and their role really is to take a look at the summaries that we develop, provide any feedback that comes up for them with those summaries, and then so what happens is we submit, or we send them 10 summaries to look at, and they have to choose 5 out of those 10 for the month. And I'll take a step back to also just to walk you through the process that we go through, or that we will be going through each month. So the first is conducting the research. We have 3 AmeriCorps Vistas that are conducting that research for us. They're using a variety of different sources, including Gayla Barron's books about Santa Rosa, so 19th century, 20th century towns. We also have a book written by the Reverend Ann Graybird called Glimpses, which talks about the history of African Americans here in Sonoma County, and particularly Santa Rosa. We have many Press Democrat articles that we have gone through as well. We've accessed the Sonoma County Library and the research database at Sonoma State University. In addition to that, Magali met with Bill Montgomery from the cemetery tours, for rural cemetery tours, received the script that they use for that tour. So we have that as well to utilize. And so the Vistas creates summaries. They create 6 historical summaries for us. So historical facts, events, locations, or historical leaders. And then they also submit 4 summaries of current community leaders. This month we did have Gay LeBaron look at our summaries just to make sure that they're historically accurate and not everything looked great. But moving forward, we are not going to be able to utilize her services for that. So we will be fact checking with our project advisory group and with a couple other historians in our community. And then the next step is to take it to the project advisory group where they get to select their 5 summaries, and then bring it to you guys to just take a look. And then what we thought that you could help us with is outreach. And I'll talk about the outreach that we are planning to do. And we will ask you for your help in disseminating this information to your community contacts and neighborhood contacts. After we get everything finalized, we share that throughout the month with the community. And so I will, like I said, I will get into the outreach in just a moment, but I want to take a few moments to talk about the upcoming summaries that we will be highlighting for the month of November. This project also got thrown off of its course due to the fires. The 2 fires that we had, one in August and one in September. And we were supposed to have this ready to go for the month of October, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So we're a little bit behind, but here we are. So for our historical leaders, we will be highlighting this month John Richards, Gilbert Gray, and Platt Williams. So a little bit of information about each of them. Like I said, I'm going to give you just a small snippet from each of their summaries. So once we have those posted, you'll have to go read about the rest of it there on the website. And then, like I said, I'll talk about the other communication channels in a moment. So John Richards was one of 20 Black people living in Santa Rosa in 1860. He was born a slave in 1824 in Kentucky and bought his freedom as a young man. He moved to California and opened a barber shop in Santa Rosa in 1856. He was known as the Santa Rosa Barber and owned 130 acres of land in Santa Rosa that became the South Park neighborhood. So again, once they're out and ready to read, you can go check out the rest of his story. Gilbert Gray, he is originally from Tatum, Texas, born on November 22nd, 1916. He moved to Santa Rosa in 1952 with his wife Alice and their 9 children. In 1953, he and fellow civil rights activist Platt Williams co-founded the Santa Rosa, Sonoma County chapter of the NAACP. Gilbert was the only Santa Rosa resident to participate in the 1963 March on Washington. And Platt Williams, he moved to Santa Rosa in 1953. His activism included participating in Santa Rosa's first ever sit-in at the Silver Dollar, which was located on 4th Street and Mendocino Avenue, as well as picketing outside Crest and Woolworth stores to protest segregation. Moving on. We will be highlighting the two current leaders, community leaders here in Santa Rosa. The first is Rafael Vasquez. Rafael hosts a radio show called, and I'm really sorry if I butcher this, Líderes del Futuro, or Leaders of the Future, on KBBF Bilingual Radio. The program focuses on education, immigration, politics, mental health, and other issues that directly impact the local community. He is also the author of the book Logrando tus sueños, or Achieving Your Dreams. The book was written as a guide for immigrant parents living in the United States. And finally, we have Joy Iodeli, who is 18 years old and born and raised here in Santa Rosa. She is active as a current community leader regarding racial equity and injustice. She created the local organization called What We Are Fighting For that serves as a resource for our local youth. Okay, so finally, outreach. So we will be using our traditional city communication channels to disseminate these summaries to the public weekly. So we'll be using our website, social media, including Facebook and Nextdoor. We will be using our City Connections newsletter. So take a look at next Thursday's edition. We will be highlighting the historical leaders in our community news section and our current community leaders in our News to Brighten Your Day section. We'll also be using our city council meetings to disseminate these summaries. And so if you attend any of our virtual city council meetings, you'll notice that there's usually just one slide in place that lets the viewer know that there will be a recess or a break that's happening during the council meeting. Instead of that one slide, we will be using a series of slides that highlight these summaries that will be rotating through so viewers can read about these individuals, or in the future, again, we'll be highlighting some other things like events and locations. So they can read about those as well during city council breaks. And now turning it back over to the CAB, our ask for you is that you help us disseminate these stories to your neighborhood groups and community contacts. And as well, if you hear any feedback from the community about this project, positive, negative, or if there are any questions or concerns about it, we would love for you to gather that feedback and provide it to staff when it comes up. So with that, I will stop, turn it back over to Co-Vice Chair Graves, and I will answer questions.
Great, thank you for that presentation. And it looks like we have I think I saw one hand and maybe another one out of the corner of my eye. So Member Konya, you had a question I saw?
I did. I was actually saying bye to Member Chaparro, but that's okay. I do have a question. I have two questions. So I love the idea of putting these on the City Council Zoom, and I hope that continues on when we finally get to be in person. My question is, are you going to have photos? Because it would be so cool to have like a historical photo, and then if they're still alive, to have, a photo of the person, because, so much of this is people seeing people that look like them. So I think that's super huge. And the second one is, I would love to share this with the community. I'm just thinking, like, if I were to share these stories on Nextdoor, how can we do that? Is it just like a link? Is it, are there going to be photos? Is there like a web page that people would go to? I'm just kind of trying to envision what a post on social media would look like.
Yes, there will be photos. So every single story will have at least one or two photos to go with it, which is the other part of the Vistas work, is they have to collect photos. And then as far as what that would look like for Nextdoor, you could link it to the project website. You could also link it to the Facebook post or social media post, so Twitter or Facebook. Or you could use the language that we've created either in the social media post or in the City Connections post and share that. So you use the content and create your own post on Nextdoor, which will then again also link directly to the website.
I thought you had another question in there, no? Okay. And was there another Member Cruz?
I just wanted to let you know, Danielle, that there's a typo on Gilbert Gray's date of death, I mean, it's April 9th, 1997, because I did have the honor to meet them and go to church with them. So I just think that needs to be fixed. And then I just wanted to name some people that I would like to see highlighted, and that would be Reverend Dr. James Coffey, who was the pastor of Community Baptist Church and a big leader here in the city of Santa Rosa. And the Honorable Superior Court Judge Serena Wong, the first person of color appointed to the Superior Court bench. She also has a wealth of information about the Chinese community here in Sonoma County. And the first Hispanic person appointed to the bench was Honorable Virginia Marcoida. She's the first Latina as well. And then the first African-American person appointed to the bench was the Honorable Commissioner Gene Buckley. And the second African-American, but first African-American man, was the Honorable Commissioner Anthony Wielden. So those are just some people that I know that are just outstanding citizens and that have represented our people. So
thank you for catching the typo, because I know his date of death too. So I just fixed that.
Okay.
And one of our Vistas is currently on right now, listening into the meeting. And so this is really great feedback for them. So just so everyone knows too, the Vistas actually just go through the books and the research that they have right now. And that's how they have selected these summaries. So it's good to hear other suggestions from community of folks that they would like to see. Could you do me a really huge favor and email those names to me, please?
I will. And there's another one. It's Willie Garrett, who was big NAACP. He was part of that group, group of African-American men that went to the Silver Dollar and formed the NAACP. So I will send the list.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Member Cruz. Those are all very important people in our history. Any other questions? Do I see Co-Vice Chair Moore? That wasn't a question, I think.
Danielle has her hand raised.
Member Devine, I see you right there.
I do, yeah. I was just wondering, I know Danielle's one in four, and it was an American one who lost his Panola Parish. I know these are still two families that exist, and we have historic splits of her and in Sonoma State, and we learned so much that I know about Americans from her. And I was wondering if that could be that I would like to see featured, because a rich Native American culture that we still here.
And you said, is that the one that you sent me through email, I think?
But
I think you sent that to me via email. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I was just looking for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we have that. And then I just saw Member Ocaña. Yeah, Member Ocaña made a comment in the chat also about Native Americans or folks from our Native community. And yes, that is on our radar as well.
And then also one thing, just there's the Filipino Center that is in Houston. I was wondering if they're participating in this at all. Yes, they are.
So, I'm sorry, the what?
The Filipino Center, the Filipino Multicultural Center in Fulton.
Oh, okay. That's a good suggestion, actually, because we've been looking for our Asian Pacific Islander community as well, representatives. So that's a good resource.
Yeah, I know, and that's what they have this celebration every year. I have some family that goes that, so yeah. Okay. So that'd be a great place to put it as well. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
And I don't see any other questions. I'll just pass it on now to public comments.
There are currently no hands raised for public comment.
Great. Thank you once again for that presentation, and also providing all of those summaries. I want to give a shout out right now to the Vista Corps, I believe that's what you said, the volunteers, the 3, are they all students? I've been trying to keep up on their profiles that are on the community connections or the city connections from Sonoma State University, I believe.
They graduated from Sonoma State University. They're not currently. So one of the requirements is you have to have graduated from college in order to participate in the AmeriCorps program, the VISTA program.
And it's absolutely wonderful that they're doing all that they're doing, and I'm sure that they're going to have even more great stories to tell. A member Okonya just mentioned in the chat also and I do not say this correctly, Eritrean community.
Yes.
And yes, that very deep community here in Sonoma County as well.
Yeah. We actually had a couple members from the Eritrean community who have a language interpretation service locally. They participated in a listening session. So we have their contact information, and I think they would be great to highlight in this project as well.
I can't wait until we actually can all get together and do these things in person, and maybe actually have someone doing a presentation that is from our current community. It would be just wonderful. And these histories are absolutely wonderful too. And thanks for including Bill Montgomery and the historical group. I think that's just absolutely wonderful to get information from them. So moving on from that item, we're going now to 6.3. Once again, slowing down what I'm saying for our interpreters. And a quick add in there, just sliding in at the last possible second, maybe connecting with who organizes the Day Under the Oaks. And I know that also has some of our indigenous community that have been very involved in that. So thank you, Member Devine, for bringing that up.
So I'm trying to keep up with the chat here because I'm copying and pasting all of these suggestions so I don't lose them. So thank you, everyone.
That's awesome. So 6.3 is our subcommittee report outs and the CAB focus areas. And I know that our empowerment committee met a couple weeks ago, and maybe I should start that off, or do we have a member of our empowerment committee that would like to make a report? If you're ready, if you're not. I almost designated you Member Okonya, just getting you back for our subcommittee meeting, that designation earlier. I will make the report for us as the next committee gets ready to designate a person. So the CAB Empowerment Subcommittee met on a couple weeks ago, and we did talk about the neighborhood group lists, and I'm going to really concentrate on our Citizen Engagement Academy because there is an action item for our members that are present tonight. If you haven't already gotten in your list of topics for our Civic Engagement 101 videos, the list of topics that you would like to see in those videos and those videos to cover needs to be submitted to Danielle by this Friday, October 30th, if you're in that committee. And to talk about that, this subcommittee is working on videos that would, in this time of COVID, talk about how to participate in the city or to learn more about the city from those videos themselves. So for instance, today I submitted my topics, and they included kind of City Council 101, who's on the City Council, how to participate in the City Council, and how to make a comment during City Council, where to find the agenda. I don't even think I was that specific, but that's what I meant. And so it is somewhat of a lengthy process to make these videos happen. I think we talked about a 6-month timeline for our subcommittee to make the videos occur. And I think I'll stop right there because that's about as much of a summary as we have. And the next subcommittee, was that the engagement?
Expertise.
Expertise, thank you. The expertise subcommittee, is there a report out?
Yes, there is. We also met, and our main object for meeting was to prioritize our goals for the near future and the far future. But we decided that as a priority, we would want to complete our toolkit for new CAB members, knowing that the election is coming up and there's going to be new CAB members that will be appointed to the board, and we wanted to be ready for that. So that was a priority that we want to do, is complete that toolkit, which Carly, I have to give big kudos to Carly because she really did a lot of work on that, and we're just finalizing and doing our last comments on that project. The next thing that we felt was a priority was linking up our seasoned CAB members with new CAB members, doing the mentor and mentee. I guess it was a goal. I don't know if we can call it a program, but we wanted to start in our next CAB meeting, see who would be interested in being a mentor to new CAB members. So we wanted to get that going. I think those were the ones that took, the other big one that we talked about was having a junior CAB, or somehow rounding up youth to be part of having a junior CAB council. Basically, it's still kind of like a idea, but our director Magali was going to check with the partnership to see if they also have something that they're talking about, having a youth council. So that was also an idea of having them either come and be with us. It's kind of hard right now because of COVID, but there was a previous program where there were youth that high school students that partners with city council members and got to sit with them and actually participate in that way, up close and personal. And so we tossed that idea around. That's just kind of like a homework assignment. We're researching that and getting more information. And if there's anything I missed, Danielle can fill in the blanks, or any other subcommittee member.
I think you covered it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Member Cruz. I want to be aware and acknowledge that Member Devine is looking, I think you're looking for a power cord right now. Yeah, so I want to be acknowledging that, because if you go out on us, I think it affects our quorum, but this might be the last thing that we really need a quorum for. Is that correct, Danielle? Okay, all right. So at this point, do we have any questions from the CAB, or yes?
I think if Vince is trying to say something about the subcommittees.
Oh, thank you, sorry.
I just had a quick, I don't know if this is a question, a suggestion that instead of creating a youth council, can we just make room for them, a couple or a few on this body itself, rather than create a whole new youth program where you have to create a curriculum and all that?
I think that was we did bring that up in our meeting, and I think that you have to be 18 years old to be on the cab, correct, Danielle? You have to
Yeah.
go through the whole board process.
But I mean, like a junior member, like the city council student that still, they don't do that anymore where they sit with the council, right?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It was the teen council. And so that's kind of what we're looking at doing for the cab is it's not going to be its own separate board. I don't think that we'll actually have, it won't be as extensive as the teen council was. Let's just put it that way. But we want to find a way to get youth voices connected with the cab and participating if that's something that they want to do. So we're actually looking at a couple of different ways that we can make this happen, including extra staff, because we have a lot on our plate, and so we're trying to find a way to make that happen without creating a whole nother body and exhausting our youth in the community that are already involved in other things even more. So we're getting there. It's just initial conversation that was had at this meeting.
I just want to put in my input for that method rather than
Perfect.
creating a whole new.
Yeah.
Because I want, if they have the experience, I want it to be meaningful, and creating another body with curriculum is.
Oh yeah, no.
I think it was more like a mentor-mentee, like shadowing a cab member and kind of being a little closer to the action. Is that kind of the right idea? Okay.
Yeah, I'm for that.
Okay. Okay.
I just had a comment. That in other countries right now, they're kind of doing a movement where they're passing on their vote or their seat when it's unutilized, so they're taking it back. So it's like I don't know if you could, if there's some kind of catch-up, we could do the same. You know what I mean? And similar to the idea that if adults are going to take these seats, then maybe kids should, because they're going to be their world really soon. So.
Thank you, Member Devine.
Yeah, thank you for that. And really great input. I should have known, Vince, you were going to have great input on that one, working with so many youth in the community. Appreciate that. So from there, do we have any public comments?
There are currently no hands raised for public comments.
Great. Thank you. I think that concludes that 6.3, the subcommittee report outs and cab focus. Just to make a mention that we did have a date change for our next empowerment subcommittee meeting. Danielle, you want to remind us what that date is?
Yeah, so the original date was supposed to be on November 11th, which is Veterans Day, and it's a holiday, so we want to honor that. And the rescheduled date is November 12th, so the day after, at 6 o'clock.
Great, thank you. If you're hearing howling, that's my dog.
Somebody really like that date, actually.
From the other room, mind you. So there you go. I think that finishes that out. And now we're going on to item number 6.4, meet your cab members and city staff. This month, we have the honor of knowing a little bit more about Danielle. I feel like we know you well, but I know that there's other bits to know. And I just want to, it's a little bit of backing up, but I also want to preface this, that I got to spend last Saturday with Danielle at the Halloween for Howard Park, or at Howard Park, doing the city booth and having, I would assume it was 2,000 cars come through. I think
it was insane.
It was well attended, to say the least. It was a drive-through Halloween. We had a great booth. we were dressed up. Magali, you joined us for a bit of time with your little one, which was really, really fun. And it was nice. I enjoy hanging out with you, Danielle, and I look forward to knowing a little bit more about you. And thank you so much for all of your service that you do for us at the CAB, and I know so many more aspects of the city. So looking forward to this bit right here.
Thank you. First of all, I have to say, Co-Vice Chair Graves made an excellent crazy lady with a spiderweb poncho and a gigantic spider attached to her, and she was like constantly asking cars passing by if she had anything on her shirt, if they had bug spray to help her out. It was amazing. The kids, especially with that last question, the kids were like wet, and the parents thought it was hilarious, so that was cool. So it was really fun. And second, I want to also say that I think that Member Okonya is the one out of every single person here that knows the most about me. She and I met in kindergarten and have known each other since then. Our families were really close, and we actually kept in contact all the years. So she knows me very well. So let me pull this up because I had to write stuff down so I didn't forget. It's a little bit about me, or a lot about me. I was born and raised in Santa Rosa, except I had a stint in Washington when I was about 15 years old. And I have to say that was an interesting experience. I don't recommend it. I love rain, but I don't love rain that much. But I didn't have a choice. So we were only there for about a year and a half, and then we came back. I graduated from Elsie Allen High School. I was part of the third graduating class in 1999, so I have aged myself. So now you know how old I am. After graduating, I attended SRJC for my general education credits. And during that time, I had my first child, a daughter, in 2003. I went on to go to Sonoma State and received my bachelor's degree in women's and gender studies with a minor in women's health in 2007. So it took me a little while to get there, but I did. And the reason why is because I also had my second daughter during that time. So I like to tell young people these days, don't do what I did. Don't make it more difficult on yourself. Get through school first. But here I am. So after graduating from Sonoma State, I began working at Social Advocates for Youth as a community advocate. I led 2 community coalitions and 2 cities, the city of Sonoma and the city of Cloverdale, through policy changes to address underage drinking issues. And it was mainly around access to alcohol through house parties and through retail settings. I worked with the chiefs of police in both cities to develop social host ordinances and to help educate teens and parents about the new policies that were in place. And I have to say I was super popular among the local teens at that time, especially in the city of Sonoma. They loved me so much that they made a Facebook page about me and also created a rap song. So that was amazing. So in 2010, while I still worked at SAY, I decided to return to school to get my master's degree in public health. I graduated from Walden University in 2012, having completed 2 years of grueling coursework and a practicum at the California Department of Public Health, all while raising, and I like to brag about this a little bit, not that I advocate for it at all, but my children's father actually had a major health crisis during this time and was not able to help at all with the kids. So I did all of this while raising my two girls all by myself, which is again a lot of work, and I do not advocate for that at all. Young people, if you are listening, please go to school first and get everything out of the way. In April 2012, after I graduated, I began working for the Sonoma County Department of Health Services. There, I coordinated the Healthy Eating, Active Living, and SNAP Ed grant programs. I also helped run the Healthy Retail Project, which was funded under both of those grants. In addition to that, I also ran our adult and youth leadership training programs and helped community members implement projects that created healthier neighborhoods in Roseland, South Park, Kiwanis Springs, and Boys Hot Springs areas. I also gained a lot of public speaking experience. I spoke about our Healthy Retail Project successes and evaluation outcomes at multiple statewide and national conferences. And the really cool thing about that is I met and worked with a lot of community partners and community members that I'm still working with today. I also have to say, going back to my time at SAY, that's when I met Vince. So I've known Vince for a really long time too. And then in 2016, I was hired by the city as the community engagement coordinator. I have, as most of you know, worked on many different projects throughout the 4.5 years that I've been here. So aside from supporting and staffing the CAB, I am our department's public information officer in times of a disaster. I'm also the communications person for our department and our connection to our city's communication team. I am the lead staff for the Community Empowerment Plan implementation and evaluation. As you know, the multicultural project I work on. And I also am the connection to staff and other departments for our residents and community groups. In addition to that, I help departments strategize around their community engagement strategies. And I've been involved in the Open Government Task Force, the implementation of the recommendations, as well as moving that draft ordinance forward. Personally, I'll get down to a personal level. I did mention that I have 2 daughters. They're both in high school. My oldest one is getting ready to graduate this spring. I married my husband in 2018 and have 2 amazing stepkids who are both adults. I have a dog named Miklo who has severe anxiety disorder, and I love him anyway. And since my husband doesn't like cats, we have 3 of them, including a kitten that we adopted a few months ago. And for those of you who know me, you already know this about me, but for those who don't, I am a huge nerd of many different things. I love to read, especially historical fiction, science fiction, and fantasy. I am a huge fan of Game of Thrones, and sometimes it's really hard to get me to stop talking about Game of Thrones once I've started. And if you've never seen my office, I do invite you to come check it out once we're allowed to have people back in the building. I also love to bake and did spend some time learning how to make professionally decorated cakes, so I can do that. I embroider. I love arts and crafts, so I'm always trying to find something new to do. My current thing is paint by number. That's fun. It keeps me busy. And I also really like nature, and so I like walking and hiking outdoors, although I haven't done so much of that this year. And I think that's all about me. So thank you for letting me talk about myself here for a few minutes, and now you know more about me.
How on earth do you do all of that?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't sleep. I'm a vampire.
You know, I was curious about the cats, but then you said baking, and I started thinking about what a great party we can have when we can all get back together again with you baking, and then we have to figure out other talents that other members have, so
yes.
we can really have a party.
Yes, I love it.
I sing, just to let you know.
I love it.
Yeah. I totally thought that about the cake as well. I was like, cake. let's have a party so we can have really cake.
My most popular and most asked for cake is a chocolate cake with peanut butter cream cheese frosting, chocolate ganache, and it's topped with chopped up Reese's peanut butter cups.
Oh my God. You're hired.
Amazing. Yeah.
Is there any questions for Danielle? I don't know how there could be questions. We've given us so much information, but Member Cruz?
I've known Danielle for a long time, but mostly through my son. We used to catch a ride. We used to drop my son off at her house so he can get a ride to junior high, Santa Rosa Junior High. And then working with her mom. So it's like, it's such a small world.
I have to do this, and hopefully your son doesn't ever see this. But I did show it to him and he thought it was hilarious. But I found this probably about a month ago, and I've been meaning to show you. But I found a picture of us from junior high, and there you go. I don't know, it's kind of blurry, but I've been meaning to show it to you. Like, we run into each other sometimes, and I always have that. I have it with me. I've been meaning to show it to you, but I keep forgetting. So there you go. Now
Who's
he's been
your
in a academy.
son? I went to junior high with Danielle. Who's your son?
Corey Bracy Cruz.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
He was bad. He's a good person now.
Maybe notorious.
There you go.
Very.
All right.
I love all these like not so secret connections of folks on this committee and board. And
Oh my God, I forgot one more. I'm sorry. I worked with Co-Vice Chair Moore at the county. So I'm putting you on the spot now too. We work together at the health department where she still is. So yeah. I'm starting to get to be like my stepdad. I know everybody in Santa Rosa.
all right, with that, thank you, Danielle. I do believe that we need to open it up to public comments at this time, and we can take I'm just also checking in with our host because it is 7:55. We have a little tiny bit more to go if our interpreters are okay with that.
Thank you very much. There are no hands raised for public comment. Let me check with the interpreters if they'd like to stick on for that last item. One moment.
Thank you.
Sorry, it looks like Cecile has to go. So if she leaves, it will impact quorum. So we can talk about the last item. It's just we won't be able to take public comment or make decisions on that item. So we might just want to end.
I'm checking with the host on the interpreter real quick too. And Cecile, I see your question.
Thank you. We can go ahead and continue on for a couple more minutes. Maybe around, if we go past 8:05, I'd like to switch interpreting services.
Okay. I think we should, I think we'd be able to wrap it up by 8:05 if that's okay, Cecile. So I'm passing it on to Co-Vice Chair Moore.
Okay, great. Thank you. Going on to agenda item number 7, where we will review future agenda items. We have listed on our agenda the Sonoma County Commission of Human Rights report, December 2020 or January 2021. The Community Empowerment Plan Goal report for January, February, and the Neighborhood Services Programming funded by Measure O next month with 2020, November. And then the Community Engagement Division Strategic Plan, which is to be determined. Are there any other agenda items that any of the CAB members would like to see on our future agendas? Member Devine?
Yeah, the neighborhood of South Park is been trying to get on the agenda for a while, and as we said, they wanted the senior center, and they were seeing it just sitting there empty. So if we could get them into at any time soon, that would be wonderful. I know it seems like we have a full agendas coming up, so I'd really like to talk to them.
Okay. Any other members? Member Cruz?
I think in the minutes from the last meeting, there was supposed to be an update about when the Human Rights Commission was going to be, there was going to be an update given on the Human Rights Report and when the City Council was taking it up. And that's all I remember, but I just don't want that to drop off the radar.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. The City Council will be hearing that report on December 15th, at their December 15th meeting. They will also be hearing at that time the after action report and one other item along with that. It'll be all packaged together on that particular meeting date.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members have any other topics? Okay. Oh, Member Kerrigan?
Sorry about that. So the listening session data that you gathered from, and I'm sorry if I'm not understanding what you're doing with that, but it seems to me there might be really interesting kind of, I don't know, you said you have some outcomes that came out of that, but I also think it might be good for community to interpret, like from maybe in an anonymous way you're presenting, I'm assuming you're in an anonymous way you're presenting the data. First of all, that might be a wrong assumption, so I want to ask that, but I'll follow up to say that I like the idea of even us looking at some of that and tying it into some changes maybe that we see that are kind of like, I just would spark ideas in us. And then I like that idea for the community in general. So it's a little bit of a concept that I'm bringing up, but if you can make sense of it, I'd appreciate it.
Is it something that you want to go on a future agenda?
Yeah, because I think it's something that the CAB, if the CAB is interested, to be looking at that and, identifying things that can be done that we think come out of those sessions and take it even further maybe.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Sure. Okay.
Any other input from any other members? Okay, I don't see anything. Any public comment on this agenda item?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
All right. That concludes this agenda item, right, Danielle? We don't need to.
Correct.
Okay. Then moving on to our final agenda item, which is adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Was that a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second by Member Kerrigan.
Okay.
All right.
Night, everyone.
A vote, all aye?
Aye.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Right.
I love the way the meeting went. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the information.